Howdy, howdy, y'all. It is another Maharaj chapter. And once again, I get to try to do it outside, so yay, yay, yay. Luckily, it's just nice enough of a day, so let's take advantage of it. It's chapter 59, folks, or chapter 59. Desire and Fear, Self Centered States. So, I think, first of all, this chapter is it's interesting because this the questioner comes in from a very trying to argue from a very just pure logic, logistical kind of just point of view of things, and it's just kind of funny to see these sort of two different worlds collide because I'm definitely of that world, so I understand where the questioner is coming from. He's especially trying to argue from probably more like a almost like a yeah just a broader human perspective. So I definitely understand where he's coming from. Um, and it's funny because they both Maharaj and him kind of like this guy starts with like a whole page like just rant or not even rant. I would say just kind of setting up like essentially that like hey it's what pain and pleasure things and the pursuit and there and he kind of he's not denying that this like there's something about pursuing pleasure that ends inevitably with pain and suffering. And he's like, why is this the case? And he's trying to like really understand this. This is pretty much like the big basis for I would say like the big question that this questioner is asking Maharaj is like, why does this pursuing pleasure lead to pain? And so and it's funny. The questioner says at one after this kind of big back and forth at the beginning. The questioner lays it out. Maharaj lays out some spits, um, and then the questioner says in relation to that, pain is not acceptable. Maharaj, I want to read this because this is I really found this interesting how he responds to this statement of pain is not acceptable. Why not? Did you ever try? Do try, and you will find in pain a joy which pleasure cannot yield. For the simple reason that acceptance of pain takes you much deeper than pleasure does. The personal self, by its very nature, is constantly pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain. The ending of this pattern is the ending of the self. The ending of the self, with its desires and fears, enables you to return to your real nature, the source of all happiness and peace. The perennial desire for pleasure is the reflection of the timeless harmony within. It is an observable fact that one becomes self conscious only when caught in the conflict between pleasure and pain, which demands choice and decision. It is this clash between desire and fear that causes anger, which is the great destroyer of sanity in life. When pain is accepted for what it is, a lesson and warning, and deeply looked into and heeded, the separation between pleasure and pain and pleasure breaks down. Both become experience, painful when resisted, joyful when accepted. So I think that was a lot to take in. I think that was one that I thought the heaviest parts of this chapter is just him just laying this out like there is something because the reason it's not to be some sort of like sadist, masochist, whatever type person. Um, it's about it's about when accepting pain. It is a yeah, like you say, it's this way of going. It's really more like an exercise of trying of stepping back and transcending the self as much as one can, or in and also seeing and the self for what it is in many levels. I mean, it's easy to know how you are when everything's going perfect, but how are you when everything's not going perfect? How do you respond to this? I know, for example, I've heard Sadhguru, for example, around watching a few of his videos where he talks about how like yeah, the reason why we worship we worship Krishna and Lord Krishna, Lord Ram, And it's because not because their lives went perfectly, but because of how they responded to such lives, despite everything going against them in so many ways and so many obstacles that they still, despite it all, just went through it all anyways, and in such a way that we deem that worthy of worship and praise. So I think that's a lot of what Maharaj I think is talking about. Pretty much, I would say even throughout this entire chapter. That's the big reason why he is arguing that that to accept pain. Because this guy, he knows this guy's of this attitude of, oh, we can't, pain is unacceptable, but pleasure leads to pain, and why? And he's trying to, because he's trying to avoid pain essentially, and Maharaj is trying to, I think he's trying to show like, well, there is something that pain itself can offer. Um, though what I do find interesting is that, you know, because he's before made distinction between like suffering and pain, and especially suffering being much more mental as opposed to just pain. Um, Here's the questioner does say: Does the acceptance of ask I should say does the acceptance of suffering act the same way as in relation to pain? Maharaj, the fact of pain is easily brought within focus of awareness. With suffering, it is not that simple. To focus suffering is not enough, for mental life as we know it is one continuous stream of suffering. To reach the deeper layers of suffering, you must go to its roots and uncover the vast underground network, where fear and desire are closely interwoven, and the currents of life's energy oppose, obstruct, and destroy each other. Which I think that's just like, I don't know, like there's something that's just the wording of all that was just very powerful. And I've personally, I would say, but for my personal life, I think even before all this, to some extent or another, tried. I mean, not always successfully, but did try to live kind of that way. Like you always address pain and the demons and all that stuff. You always address that stuff head on. You never retreat from that because that I mean just avoiding then you're just avoiding pain and then seeking pleasure and then you're a slave to it essentially. You're a slave to pain and pleasure, and he's talk about that. I think even within that, I think he's even used that terminology. I think even within this chapter, if not other chapters for sure. So like that's what you're being, and so here's then the question in response to that what I just read. Here's how the questioner then responds: How can I set right a tango which is entirely below the level of my consciousness? Which I think is a pretty valid question. I don't know about you. But the way Maharaj responds to it is, pretty typical, I think, of how you would expect him to. By being with yourself, the I am, by watching yourself in your daily life with alert interest, with the intention to understand rather than to judge, in full acceptance of whatever may emerge, because it is there you encourage the deep to come to the surface and enrich your life and consciousness with its captive energies. This is the great work of awareness. It removes obstacles and releases energies by understanding the nature of life and mind. Intelligence is the door to freedom, and alert attention is the mother of intelligence. Intelligence is the to freedom, and alert attention is the mother of intelligence. That part, especially that last sentence, that's a real. I think that's just a good summary of what. Yeah, I think that's a good way of describing intelligence. Way more so than like an IQ test or any of this sort of nonsense. That is intelligence. It's the door to freedom. I mean, that's the best way of understanding it. And it's whether if are you going to access that door or not. Honestly, I mean, I'm being facetious. I mean, because obviously, like IQ, that's like a whole, like that's like brain computing and stuff like that. So that's a whole other matter. Um, anyways, oh, and let's get then to The what the chapter is called about, because it talks about fear and desire being self-centered, right? So this is what, and then here Maharaj, uh, this is what he talks about. This is him describing that. Naturally, selfishness is always destructive. Desire and fear both are self-centered states. Between desire and fear, anger arises. With anger, hatred. With hatred, passion for destruction. War is hatred in action, organized and equipped with all instruments of death. Questioner, is there a way to end these horrors? Maharaj, when more people come to know their real nature, their influence, however subtle, will prevail and the world's emotional atmosphere will sweeten up. People follow their leaders, and among leaders appears some great in heart and mind. Absolutely free from self-seeking, their impact will be enough to make cruelties and crimes of the present age impossible. A new golden age may come and last for a time, succumb to its own perfection, for ebb begins when the tide is at its highest. Questioner, is there no such thing as permanent perfection? Maharaj, yes, there is, but includes all imperfection. It is the perfection of our self nature which makes everything possible, perceivable, interesting. It knows no suffering, for it neither likes nor dislikes, neither accepts nor rejects. Creation and destruction are the two poles between which it weaves its ever changing pattern. Be free from predilections and preferences. The mind with its burdens of sorrow will be no more. Questioner, but I do not suffer alone. There are others. Maharaj, when you go to them with your desires and fears, you merely add their sorrows. First be free of suffering yourself, and then only hope of helping others. You do not even need to hope. Your very existence will be the greatest help a man can give his fellow man. And that's how the conversation ended. And just, yeah, once again, kind of reiterating a lot of the. I mean, he gets back to it by the end. He gets really back to it. No matter how these questioners try to frame a bunch of this stuff, he's able to always take what they're saying and frame it and give it back to his, these basic points of framing of the I am and the internal bliss within it, and the consciousness being all these talking points that we've heard throughout the book. And like I said, I think this, like I say, the questioner's not dumb. The questioner's not being, I think, irrational by any stretch. He's not. He's just. He's being. I think Maharaj is just showing him this door. There's other avenues. Like, I see how you've been seeing this world and perceiving it all and understanding pain, pleasure, and blah blah blah. But really, you're actually kind of bounded by it. And this is how. And by actually, not being fearful of pain in the way you have been, that can actually help begin breaking the chains to that whole bondage, which will ensure you in a sort of, you know, state of mind that is indescribable by words. And we use words like bliss and whatnot to describe it, but it's even past that even. So, yeah, I think I'm going to just end it on there since the chapter ended on that. And I hope this was informative. I hope you felt you gained a lot from this. And I hope you have I hope for all sentient beings for enlightenment. So, Hare Krishna. Peace be upon you all. Peace.